Very good morning to you all. And also, hearty congratulations on your great achievement. Congratulations also goes to the institution which helped you to reach this goal. You have a very long distance to go. As it is well said, I have miles and miles to go before I sleep. The question is, how will you take the journey? Do you want to take a quickest and the fastest way to reach? Or you want to take a very slow route? Or you want to take a route which is people-friendly? I'm not a philosopher, not a sannyasi either. I saw life from different aspects. Unlike you all, I never planned my life. I'm a destiny's child. But I'm not hesitant to say or share my experience of life with people who I think should be told. Whether you practice or not is entirely left to you all. I was born to a middle-class family. My father was born to an agricultural family. Most members of his family never studied very much, probably up to school. Then they fell and depended upon the land that was available to the family. As the family grew, the land became smaller and smaller, and all the affections, love, and other things that was prevailing in the previous generation seems to have, or I was told at least, disappeared, started disappearing at least. There was conflict amongst the members of the family in sharing the produce from the family land. And I believe my father is the only person who obtained a degree and became a lawyer. And I belong to a community which had a matriarchal system of succession, where men didn't inherit permanently any property from the family. It's only the women who did it. But during their lifetime, they were given certain properties for their maintenance, and it was called life estate. After their death, it would go to a female member of the family who was predetermined and identified. It is said that my father, after he finished his education and started law practice in a panchayat level or a taluka level, he's supposed to have told his co-partners, I don't want any share in the property. I don't want any one of you to wait for me to die. You can keep my share now itself because you've given me education. It's in that background when we were born and we were growing, we were told especially by my father, which includes the efforts of my mother too, that to develop an attitude of contentment with what you legitimately have. When we grew up, I was one of the 6 siblings. I've lost one sister. 5 of us are still there. We didn't have the pleasure of having a cycle, forget scooter, cars and other things. You're far beyond our reach, but never missed it. We had 1 or 2 sets of dress every year. We had enough to eat and gave the best of education that was available where we were staying. It's in this background, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up. Never missed anything. Anything that came over and above that was just a luck. Enjoyed it, but never ever tried to aspire it if it was not mine legitimately. I stand here and say it with all the confidence that I have followed what my parents have taught me. I have retired from last assignment of mine about 11 years back. I have given many reports to the government of Karnataka as Lokayukta. I've indicted 3 chief ministers, 8 ministers, over 150 officers. Many of them were of your cadre, and maybe somebody below your cadre too. Dozens and dozens of firms and companies were involved in the fraud, in the administration of this country, state also. But nobody has been able to point a finger at me. I say it with all the pride, whatever you call it. I even told a chief minister who showed a finger at me for having indicted him, and we wanted my nightlife to be audited. I said, why night? Start from the day till the end. I have 1 car, 1 flat, 1 wife, I said. That should be your attitude, my dear friends. I wish you all the best in life, all the success. But try and understand why you are holding that post. I was a law officer. I was the Advocate General of this state for over 4.5 years. I was the Solicitor General of India. I was taken directly to the Supreme Court. I was holding the post of Chairman of Telecommunication Disputes Appellate Tribunal for some time when I was invited to come here as Lokayukta for 5 years. But, as I said, I'm very content with what you have, what I have. And that should be your goal. Ladies and gentlemen, many of you would have read the Constitution of India. Probably some of you even would have gone beyond that or behind that and seen what was the thought of the people in that assembly called Constituent Assembly when they created a post called the Executive. It's the Constitution of India which functioned from 1947 to November 24th, 1949 and produced a wonderful document called the Constitution of India. It's the people who worked there. If you could study the Constituent Assembly debates, you'll understand what was their integrity. What is that they were working for? What did they consider themselves to be? Being a member of the Constituent Assembly was a great thing, but did they look at it that way? And when they created the 3 pillars of the Constitution, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. If you read their debates, discussions, that would show the love they had for this country, what they expected this country to be. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are now part of one of those pillars. They are the same. Not one is more important than the other. When the matter of creating a legislature was being discussed in the Constituent Assembly, a question arose whether a person who was going to be a part of that system, which was later to be the parliament or the legislature, should they have any educational qualification? Many elders pleaded, they are the lawmakers. Without education, what is that they can do? And it is said, practically, majority of the people wanted to impose educational qualification on the members of the legislature. Then one member supposed to have stood up and addressed the House and said, Sir, the population of this country today, that's about 47-48, of 1947-48, is about 40 crores. And 80% of Indians are illiterates. You said, we want to adopt democracy as the political system of this country. And the definition of that system meant, according to them, government of the people, by the people, for the people. And you want to have a legislature consisting of 20% of the literates. Is this the democracy you want to follow? Was there no administration before this system is to come into existence? Were people not administering their family, their areas? They didn't have a formal education, but they did manage. It is said the house became totally silent, and there was nobody who could stand up and oppose and say that no, there should be educational qualification to become a member of the legislature. And that issue of education was dropped. As you all know, even today, there is no educational qualification. Of course, today I'm sure 90%, 95% of the members of the parliament or the state legislature are educated. But is the thinking the same as it was at that point of time? When the creation of the second pillar of the Constitution, the executive came up. They wanted people of high educational qualification, intelligent people, practical thinking people to be the members of the executive. They said nobody other than a selection committee should have any say in the selection of these people. It should be an independent body. Neither the legislature nor the judiciary should have any say in that matter. So they created an independent body called the Public Service Commission. You know, the Central Public Work Union Public Service Commission and the State Public Service Commissions. That was the expectation of this country. That they wanted this country to be administered by people who were qualified, who will manage the affairs of the country. And it is not to be managed by anybody else. Even though there is no specific mention in the Constitution of India that there is a separation of power between the three pillars of the Constitution, it is well accepted by everybody concerned, including the judiciary, that there is a separation of power. Things have changed, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the number one pillar of the Constitution, I wouldn't say it number one because of the status, I'm only putting a number there, has taken over the entire administration. I'm not a politician, never been one and will not be one. There's hardly any time left for another one. I'm 81 years old now. You'll realize what sort of an administration is this? You allocate funds for a department or a territorial area for development, and you are the ones who decide on what project and what area to whom the benefit should go. But then in reality, does the executive do this? No. I once, a few years back, read one of the local elected representative of the state legislature saying, "What is this post? I can't even transfer an SP." Who is he? But then I want you to do some introspection. Who's responsible for this? If that encroachment was stopped in the beginning itself by people concerned, it would not have come to this level. Laws are made. For whose benefit? Just day before yesterday, I was reading a news item. It says, in all airlines, the waitlisted passengers should be kept aside if a member of the parliament or the legislature wants a seat in the plane. Where are we going? But that doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory when it comes to the second pillar of the Constitution or the third pillar of the Constitution, the judiciary. I have seen it from close quarters, ladies and gentlemen. I do not find that basic fundamental thing called honesty in the system, be it the first pillar, the second pillar, or the third pillar of the Constitution. I today do not blame individuals. I blame the society in which we are, because that when I was young, I realized it is a society which controls the moral values of the people. If there was somebody in my locality who had been to jail, somebody in the house, some of the house went to jail, my parents would tell me, don't go there. I might have written a best friend from that family, but they wouldn't allow me to go there. Because there was what is called a social boycott of a person who committed a social mistake. Where are we today, ladies and gentlemen? You go to jail, take a bail, and you come out, there are thousands of people waiting to receive you at the gate of the jail. Recently, ex-MLA or somebody who was involved in a murder case and was 9 months in jail in north of Karnataka, was granted bail, comes out there, hundreds of people receiving him in garlands and wanting to shake hands with him when he's sitting in an open jeep. We have come to a situation, my dear friends, when you said, why do you want to honor a person who has been to jail? He says, he is not the only one who has been to jail. Mahatma Gandhi also went to jail. That is the reality of the society in which we are. Ladies and gentlemen, there are temptations. The question is, what would you accept? An honest life or a rich, so-called affluent, corrupt life? I saw the sufferings of the people from very close quarters for the 5 years I was in the Karnataka Lokayukta. When I was a Lokayukta in Karnataka, it had only 2 jurisdictions. One is granting relief to people who suffer because of maladministration, what's called the grievance redressal, which power was otherwise with the courts. Of course, courts' power was not taken, but an alternative was provided for. Rich people do not require good administration. They know how to get and manage it. It's the poor who really dependent upon administration, and the administration comes from you. You are the future administrators. The burden is quite heavy on your shoulders, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's difficult, but that shows your strength. If you have developed that, one of the most important values called contentment in life with what you legitimately have, you are not tempted with anything. My father was a Supreme Court judge too. It's not a hereditary office, I want you to tell you that. But when he died, he lived in a 2-room house in a village. The population was 1,000 people maybe. None of my siblings or I inherited anything from him, but he told us from the beginning, what I earn, I'll give it to you by way of education, by way of basic needs, which he did. He was drawing a salary of 4,000 rupees as a judge of the Supreme Court. But we lived a wonderful life. We never felt that we were missing anything because he taught us the values of life. I am placing before you, what life is it? I don't think there are many people in this who was more content and happy than I am. I got a telephone call a few days back saying that they want to felicitate the successful people who came out of this institution. I didn't ask them, which is your institution? Probably I didn't even ask what time is it, because I thought it was 10 o'clock in my diary. I noted it as 10 o'clock and I was here at 9:45. As the compare said, one of the basic value is value for time. I have been to more than 1,600 educational institutions, apart from functions like this, which could be equal in number, to convey to the people whom I am addressing just 2 values in life. One is contentment, other is humanism. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many of you are science students. I'm a science student. There is no species called humans. We are born to a species called Homo sapiens, which has got nothing to do with humanism. Humanism is a value which our elders created for peace and solidarity in the society. If you don't have humanism in you, you don't deserve to be called a human being. In Kannada, there's very many sayings and many poets have written, and one of them writes, become what you want to become in life, but become a human being first. ಏನೇ ಆಗು ನಿನಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದವನಾಗು, ಆದರೆ ಮೊದಲು ಮಾನವನಾಗು ಅಂತಾರೆ. And you, holding the office of an executive of this country, if you are a human being, which you ought to be, that's the greatest virtue you could have. Of course, you can't compromise in the name of humanism, honesty, and best of administration. In very many areas, your hands are tied because the rules of the law says for you to be done to do this. Yes, you have to do that. But don't ever succumb to temptation, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever compromise your post. At the most, what is that others like elected representatives or judiciary can do to you? At the most, they can transfer you. One other most important thing I want you all to learn, which I learned and I followed, is you are a public servant and not a public master. You may be sitting in a high pedestal chair, but you are not a public master. When I came to the Karnataka Lokayukta, which was Lokayukta means a people's commissioner, I was told, I don't know how far it is right or wrong, my predecessors, except one of them was a great person who gave an institution the face, Justice N. Venkatachala. Others, I'm told, never met anybody, received any complaint directly. They would say, go meet that gentleman, give a complaint, I'll investigate. Because that's what the judges did. But that is not what the Lokayukta was expected to do. So I fixed 2 hours every day in the evening, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the evening, to meet complainants personally. And I organized officers in every district headquarters and told them the same thing. 2 hours a day, you must fix it for the people to come. When they started coming and I offered them a chair, nobody would sit. So I had to compel them by saying, if you don't sit, I won't talk to you. And they, of course, started talking and they never stopped. For that, you got to learn a method by which you can make him stop or make. But I was also told by a very good friend of mine who was a psychiatrist, he said, Santosh, look here, you go with the jacket, a tie and other things, you go sit there. And they're not used to talking to people sitting down across the table. Change your attire. Go with open-collared shirt. So I used to go with the jacket and tie, but then during the 2 hours, I'd go to the ante-room, remove my jacket and tie. And with the open-collared shirt, I would sit there and started talking to them. It changed the entire thing. You got to evolve methods depending upon what is the situation prevailing in the area, because it varies from area to area where you are posted. And once you convince yourself you are a public servant and not a public master, it itself brings a tremendous amount of change. I just give you a few personal examples in the sense I saw it myself and I dealt with it myself to show how maladministration can ruin the life of people. 2009, I think, after 3 years after I came to the Lokayukta, an elderly lady over 80, 85 years old came to me and said, Sir, I have no income. I have one son working in Mumbai. He sends me 250 rupees by money order. Postman wants 10%. You don't give 10%, he puts an endorsement. Visited the house 3 times, address is not found. The money is supposed to go back to the remitter. I don't think it reaches there. So she cried. What can I do? How do I live? Now, postman, as you know, is a central government employee, is not a state government employee. So I called an officer, All India Service officer, to tell him the solution problem and find a solution. He must have calculated 250 rupees, 10%, 25 rupees. He tells me, sir, 25 rupees case, sir. My officers are busy handling big investigations. I have no time for that. My officers are not there. Can you imagine? Did he know what this 25 rupees was for that lady? Did he know why he is posted here? Now, what do? Either I say, no, you give a police complaint. You go and file a writ petition in the High Court. I knew because I worked in those areas. I called my police chief. I discussed with him. He said, sir, don't worry. We'll look into it. And I sent a police constable to speak to that postman in his own language and solve the problem. Now, that lady's problem is solved. But would he have learned any lesson, the postman, from that? Now imagine how many people are there who will suffer of a similar thing. You want a birth certificate? Unless you pay. It's a mamul. The word is quite appropriate. You want a death certificate? I'm giving you some examples which hurt the man at the bottom level. Another day, an Air Force officer, high-ranking Air Force officer called me from Hyderabad. He didn't know me. He must have known because by the time I had become notorious enough to be known. So he said, Mr. Hegde, 3 days back, my older brother's 18-year-old daughter is killed in a road accident in Bangalore. Her body is lying in a government hospital. 3 days. We have kept an ambulance to bring the body to Hyderabad because all of us can't come to Bangalore. Police are not allowing the body to be put in the ambulance unless post-mortem is done. 3 days, no post-mortem is done. He pleaded with me, try and understand our problem. We have lost a young member of the family. I said, give me a couple of hours, I'll get back to you. I went to that hospital, met the superintendent. He said, sir, it's impossible. 3 days, it can never happen and all. I'll call the doctor. So send somebody to call the doctor. The doctor comes into the superintendent's room and listen to his dialogue, good enough for any movie. He's saying, what's the hurry? Body is not decaying. It's in a freezer. Am I to treat a living patient first? Or give preference to a post-mortem over a dead body? The superintendent asked him, who gave you permission to treat a living patient? I sent you to the post-mortem ward. He said, no, sir, a patient's relative came to me. He said, his relative is not getting proper treatment. Therefore, he requested me to come and treat him. So I went there. I said, doctor, did you know this patient or his relative earlier? No, sir, first time. That hospital has got 50, 60 trained other doctors in the main building. And a patient's relative is not satisfied with the treatment, goes 100 meters away to a post-mortem ward to call a post-mortem doctor to give better treatment to his relative. said, okay, I understood. I'll be sitting here until the post-mortem is done. And then let's see what's the consequences here. Well, the post-mortem was done, the body was put in the ambulance and sent to Hyderabad. Ladies and gentlemen, if it was his own daughter. So we have dual personality in our life. When you accept a job like this, you have only one personality. That is of a public servant. You have voluntarily accepted that. You are an All India Service Officer or a State Administrative Service Officer, which is an office of dignity. But that doesn't mean you misuse your powers. Every time you deal with a file, try and understand that there is somebody involved in this case whose legal right is before you. Any amount of wealth acquired beyond your legitimate means does not bring you contentment or happiness. I can assure you that. I've dealt with people, hundreds of them with the various levels. You have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, of helping people of this country. Do you know the growth of greed in our country? Has any one of you has applied your mind to that disease called greed? In the decade of 50s, there was one scam called Jeep scam, and country lost 52 lakhs of rupees in importing Jeep vehicles from Great Britain to our soldiers. Every year there was a scam or two which came into the public domain. All scams don't come out of 10, 1 or 2 comes out, rest of them don't come out. And there can be no public scam without the involvement of a public servant. Be assured. There's Mundra scam of LIC, Dalmia scam of Bharat Bank, Nagarwala scam of Central Bank. Let's jump to the decade of 80s. Bofors, I'm sure everybody heard about that, in importing Bofors guns for our soldiers. The country lost 64 crores of rupees. Come to the decade of 2000, 1999-2000. Commonwealth Games. Country lost 70,000 crores in one scam siphoned off by few people in power. 2010-11, Colgate. 1,86,000 crores. 2G, 1,70,000 crores. These are not my figures. These are the figures given by the CAG after an investigation. And what is the development we are talking about? We have developed, no doubt about it and all. But that's not the development we should have achieved. We should have achieved multiple times more than that. In 1985, then the Prime Minister of this country, late Rajiv Gandhi, made a public statement. Then in 1985, out of 1 rupee the government gave for development, the beneficiary got 15 paise only. 1985, we are in 2021. Greed has not come down. We can't go on like this. There is bound to be a change over the decades, like what became good and became bad out of good. Is bound to be a good out of bad. But the question is, how is it going to come through? Not by peaceful means, unless the society changes. The other method is the so-called revolution. A revolution in a country like ours is the end of this country. Read the history of Europe. what was Europe and what is Europe today. And the most dangerous thing in revolution is religion and language. We have enough of it in this country to add to the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not my future. I have no children also to feel sorry for them. It is also your future, like many other Indians, your children's, grandchildren's future. The only way I can think of, I will stand here if you have any other way to point out to me to control this situation. If it is correct, I'll accept it. I'll bow down and I will repeat what you have said in other speeches of mine, if there is a way. But as far as I know, this greed cannot be treated by operation or medical treatment. The treatment is in you only. When you are content with what you earn legitimately, you do not aspire for anything else, then you realize the importance of your responsibility. When you ever feel that I've been deprived of what I legitimately have, just turn around and see how many of them are behind you. How many of them have worked so hard for 15 hours, 16 hours a day because they had no opportunity what you have had in life. I keep telling the youth, when I say be content and have humanism, that doesn't mean that when you get a job, you become a sannyasi and okay, I don't want anything, I have given up everything in life and all, I'm not doing. No! Have ambition. Ambition to grow, ambition to become somebody rich, ambition even to become a millionaire. There's nothing wrong. Don't steal it from somebody. Don't take it away from the plate of somebody. That's where your conscience helps. I have many things to say, but there's a shortage of time. You, as I mentioned, you have a long way to go. Make up your mind. You have become the member of a very constitutional organization. Your responsibilities are many, and the nation, I'm sure, looks forward for your administration. Change it from what it is today. Don't compromise. Recently, somebody had come to me complaining about the Karnataka Public Service Commission. And I realized, if you pay money and get into the service, you can never be honest. Thank you very much for listening to me for all this time, and I wish you once again, all the very best. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me a question or two. I'm prepared to take it. But otherwise, I must conclude now and wish you all the best once again. Thank you very much.